Richard Pryor has been hailed as the greatest comedian of all time, doing stand-up until about 1984, give or take a small amount of time. Or at least that's what I thought. According to the witness accounts, there have been reports of Pryor continuing to do stand-up comedy until as of late 2001, until the MS made it too difficult for him to continue performing. But why haven't you heard of him doing this? Simple. He was just tired of touring. He wanted to entertain people on his own terms, using whatever material he wanted. So he started hitting up comedy clubs along the lower west coast and even some smaller places in Canada. It was incredibly difficult to not get noticed, besides the greatest stand-up ever. So he wore disguises that almost always work, but occasionally his ego got the best of him, as he went on a few times incredibly rural areas without anything covering his face. But these were a few times when I got to witness the accounts. There's this only one willing person I was able to find who tracked down his shows for around 6 months in the early 90s, and again up from 1998 to 99. Apparently people had tried to take photos of him while he was doing this shit unmasked, and those people who were dragged outside are beaten to senseless, once or twice, to the point of death as to act an example. Remember how he kept going on movies until the late 90s? Well, notice how his ego is mostly what exploded. There were cast members in the late 80s onwards about this. And this was further down when it was brought to my attention that he liked to talk about his shows, that how a person would be getting better material by the day. Carlin will be shuffling his shift around for the last 30 years, and he started to get angrier as his sets went on complaining about why everything in the world is wrong. And at that point, did a few sets where there weren't any jokes, just him yelling at a crowd. After these sets, he walked back up off stage, and he was like a completely different person. Even more curious, I heard one more concert film privately that was leaked onto Jennifer Lee, Pryor's final wife and manager. Just last year, it was an hour and 22 minutes, and the file was titled RP Existence. According to the reports, it was a shot of Laugh Factory with a cameraman that looked like straight out of the mid-80s, and I had to hassle Jennifer Lee to release the details. When she eventually broke down, I confronted her on the streets, crying. She told me about the horrifying picture. It must have been taking place around 2001 or 2002. Richard made many business trips for those years, even though he needed to assistance to get anywhere. After hours at the Laugh Factory, it was him in a room with no real crowd, but him standing right in front of an unplugged microphone in the darkness because of his distance in the camera. I could barely make out his face, but based on his expression, it was clear day. He spent 30 or 35 minutes telling inaudible jokes and laughing hysterically himself after he told them that he looked like he hadn't slept in days and was almost skeletally thin. 2 minutes after this, though, the man snapped. Just God started screaming the words that I could barely make out, moving so rapidly, like if he was going to have a seizure. And then he fell out of his chair flat on his face, and his mobility vehicle drifted into the distance. Flat on his face, he nearly decomposed shape, and he twitched but then stopped until there was the end of the video or had a minute or two left. So I noticed something horrifying. A tall man in a suit with some odd mask just came into the picture and stared at him deathly still as the video stops. He said in his tears that when I mentioned that the screams had no partially audible due to the area of the Laugh Factory, she grew pale and stumbled away, as if her heart had been shattered instantaneously.